Let's stand for the invocation. Please follow to God the pledge. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for once again allowing us to assemble to do the people's work. Lord, we ask that you please give us guidance and direction on every action that we may take. And please bless each and every family that's represented here today and all the employees and staff that work for the County of Cumberland and others that work and give their services as well. In Jesus Christ's Son, Lord, we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and I would respectfully ask for a couple of amendments to the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would ask the board to please remove item 4C. That was an amended professional services agreement on the emergency rental assistance program, and I want to work a little bit closer with the county attorney on this item. I'd like to bring it back at the September agenda session. And then in addition to that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask under other items, our county attorney would like to give the board an update on the opioid litigation settlement, what that status is. And then in addition, I'd ask Mr. Jackson to provide the board with some of the immediate needs we have in our animal shelter veterinarian medical program, with your permission, with the board's permission.
Yes, ma'am. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments? Is there a second? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item
2 is approval of the June 10th, 2021 agenda session regular meeting minute.
move approval. Second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Item 3.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, that brings us to our presentations. The first one is 3A. This was requested by Commissioner Booth after he received a presentation by his participation on another community board. So this is a presentation by the Cape Fear Regional Theater on their renovation project.
Welcome.
Hi. Thanks. Good job, Ryan. Should we give that to our paper?
And I really felt ignorant about this because I drive down the hill every morning and drive back that same intersection every evening and did not know what was going on behind the doors. So I thought, I was there, but I hadn't bought any seats, so I didn't want to sign the floor. If I wasn't buying the floor, I didn't want to sign it.
Everyone was welcome to sign up for it. And then how do we advance spacebar? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for the time today, and thank you to Commissioner Booth for extending this invitation for us to share the tremendous growth that Cape Fear Regional Theater has been undergoing over the past few years. We know that you as commissioners share our vision for a thriving arts and culture sector in Cumberland County. And as you expand your vision for the county's investment in arts and culture, CFRT is integral to the success of future developments because 78% of adults who attend multiple cultural offerings per year saw their first show by the time they had finished elementary school. So we are quite literally growing the next generation of both talent and ticket buyers. Now this youth to adult pipeline can be seen most concretely in the following graphic. I am Mary Kay Burke. I am the artistic director. I moved here from New York 5 years ago where I was the associate producer for D.E. Harris Productions. D.E.'s office is a 9-time Tony Award winning production
City, where I was a company manager for off-Broadway shows, and I managed the U.S. leg of the world tour for YouTube sensation Dan and Phil. Cape Fear Regional Theater is entering our 60th season. We are a 501c3 nonprofit with an annual operating budget that hovers around $1.6 million. Our income is 50% earned and 50% contributed. And we have 16 full-time employees and hire more than 120 contract artists every year.
We have been growing by leaps and bounds. Now, in 2019, it was a hallmark year. We served 49,000 people. That was a 15% jump from the year before. So in one calendar year, we increased 15%. And this year, which is the year we were shut down due to COVID-19, as you can see demonstrated by our masks here, we served 43,000 people. If we had been able to finish that season, we believe we would have increased our impact by 25% over a 2-year window of time.
And that's just indicative that at CFRT we punch far above our weight class. Our impact is on par with other institutions like Playmakers Rep and the North Carolina Theater, which is housed at the Duke Energy Center. We do so for a fraction of their budgets, which are $3 million and $5.3 million respectively. This means that every dollar invested at CFRT stretches 2 to 3 times as far.
We believe that theater should be a window and a mirror to the community that we serve. This means that the shows we produce, the artists we hire, the audience that attend should reflect the magnificent diversity of Cumberland County. Now, according to the Americans for the Arts, theaters across the country, their audiences are only 25% diverse. Cape Fear Regional Theater blows this statistic out of the water. At a conservative estimate, our audiences are 40% diverse. And we are gaining national reputation as a launch pad. We are the most awarded theater in the Raleigh Metroplex by the Broadway World Awards. And this year we received not 1, but 2 National Endowments for the Arts Awards, including we're the only theater in the state of North Carolina to receive an NEA award for our upcoming production of The Color Purple for musical theater. We bring tremendous national talent to work alongside our local pool of talent, and this makes us become a place where careers are launched. So all of these people that you see over here, they had an opportunity to perform in the Cape Fear Regional Theater, and in 1 to 2 years they were performing on Broadway or in national tours. The secret of CFRT is getting out there, and we are developing a major reputation as an incubator and springboard for arts.
Our education and outreach programs serve more than 2,000 youth every year. Most year for student matinees. 83% of Cumberland County schools are Title I, and the arts are essential to social and emotional well-being. So CFRT directly subsidizes $250,000 each year so that every child can afford to attend the live arts. We also work hand in hand with military children on post-grad. Thanks to funding from the North Carolina Arts Council, our passport classes teach playwriting and performance skills that empower students to express their feelings and emotions. We are now considered the gold standard for this type of programming in the state and have expanded to include programs at Rick's Place, which is a military reset facility, and the Friendship House, which is a cooperative living program for young adults with varying abilities. Our education program is thriving and has also experienced tremendous growth. Our summer programs grew by 45%, and even in the midst of the pandemic, our winter classes saw an 89% increase in student enrollment.
Now, this dramatic increase was made possible because we weren't producing on the main stage, so we had more time to have classes in our facility. So this all goes with the thesis statement that with more space, we can serve more people. And if you were to look at this building, it sits at a key intersection of High Street and Highland Avenue and Hay Street. Over 1 million cars pass it a
our three-phase capital investment plan and update you as to where we are in our journey. Phase 1 is the interior of the theater, which has been designed by local architects at SFL&A. When we reopen in October, the theater will have wider chairs, deeper rows, a brand new custom sound system designed by a Tony Award-winning sound designer, more handicap accessible seating, LED energy efficient lighting, new HVAC with fresh air intake to set us up for the strongest possible re-entrance post-COVID, and the pièce de résistance with full unanimous board support behind it, cup holders. The total cost of this project is just under $1 million, and I am thrilled to say that we have raised 90% of that goal to date, and we expect to complete our raise by September. We have raised $862,000 so far, and the project has been funded by grants and through the support of more than 150 community members who are contributing to this initiative by sponsoring a chair in the theater. Some of you in this room are members of the Seat Squad already, and thank you so much for that support.
And to those who aren't, we have 25 chairs left. Now, phase 2 encompasses the rest of the building. That's everything towards the Highland Ave side of the street. We've amassed an incredible steering committee who is helping us towards our goal. And as of yesterday, I am thrilled to announce that Cape Fear Regional Theater appears in both the Senate and the House budgets for $5 million towards our phase 2 renovation. Globally, we will get an investment of $5 million from the state of North Carolina towards our goal. The delegation has been incredibly impressed with how much we've raised within 1 year towards phase 1 at a time where our main public-facing normal operation was ceased. And they are impressed with how we serve the whole community, including our extensive outreach to our classrooms and to Fort Bragg. They know how important having attractive distant buildings are to recruiting new businesses and livability indexes. And our state delegation agrees that it is our time. A lot of other nonprofits have just finished capital campaigns, and CFRT hasn't sought public funding for a capital project in more than 35 years. We've been working with FSU to generate an economic impact study for the project. Now, these results are preliminary. The final results will be out in September. We would be so happy to share that report with you. But we've been working with Greg McElveen at FSU, and I'm just going to run through some quick things. This is what our projected for this year is. Now, we've never lived in a post-pandemic moment, so we scooched our earned income back down a little bit. At the top, you'll see the direct impact. So this represents our operating budget and the number of full-time jobs that we create. Then there's the induced impact, so all of the pass-through money that happens, and then visitor spending. So this line item and above is the total operational revenue that Cape Fear Regional Theater generates. Then down below you see the capital investment, and this is years 1 through years 5, and this is the total aggregate of the amount of money we will spend on this capital project, the induced and indirect income, and the totals down below. So if you aggregate this, the work that Cape Fear Regional Theater is aiming and striving to do in the next 5 years, you will see that we will have a $35 million impact on our local economy through direct and indirect funds, through operation, and through capital.
We know that this is a commission who wants a thriving arts and culture scene for Cumberland County. You've listed a performing arts center as one of your top priorities, and CFRT is an integral part of the arts ecosystem in Cumberland County. We will grow the next generation of artists and attendees. This project has already garnered incredible community and legislative support and is already on its way. We're excited to share that with the continued support of this commission, we can turn this facility into something that looks like this.
Cape Fear Regional Theater is a beloved cultural institution and an important vanguard to downtown. Our institution deserves a building that reflects the accomplishments and will support its continued growth. We have been doing this work for 60 years, and with your support, we can ensure that we will continue to do so for the next 60. So this is an eyewash rendering by SFL&A Architects of what we intend to transform the corner of Hay Street and Highland Ave over the next 5 years. Thank you so much for your support. I don't know how it works here, but this is it. So we're asking for a $2,000 investment over a 4-year window of time. The goal is to be $500 a year for 4 years for $2,000 investment. So Michael, we have some 6-foot brochures for you. And anyone else who wants to join Michael in our
I'll
initiative,
split a seat with you, Mike.
you can.
I got someone hit me with brochures going into your open house the other night.
Yeah.
And so I made the mistake of putting them in my pocket. And so as I was coming out, another person gave me another set. So I have an extra set if anybody needs
There we go.
it. They're not shy, but it's just so soft. You don't even realize. It's like passing the plate. You just kind of go,
Are there any questions or comments for the young ladies? Yes, Mike.
I just, like I said, I drive by this at least twice a day, going to work and coming back. And that's when I go out running or for anywhere else. Here at work. Anyway, so I was really impressed. I went inside there and saw the signing. I think Glenn went in there too. You can go in and sign your name to the foundation before they start building on top of it and everything, but they'll give you a nice tour of it, free cookies. But at first I thought, this is going to take the initial wind out of the sails for the Performing Arts Center. And then I actually listened to the presentation, and just like she said, this is almost like the incubator. Could you imagine if like something did come to town for the venue, and they needed somebody, they were either going to have to cancel the 3-day tour, or they needed somebody that could play one of the herdsmen from the greatest little Christmas pageant ever or something. Well, they've got herdsmen go back
30 years.
30 years. So what age herdsman do you want would be the question back. So, I just, at first I thought this was conflicting, but I see it as very complimentary to what we're trying to do, and to give folks a reason other than jobs, quality of life, and a community center feel to Fayetteville.
Jeanette.
Where's the parking?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're working with our neighbors. Right now, the parking exists as a relationship with the Highland Church, but we are trying to aggregate a large portion of that area, because as more things happen up there, as Haymound continues to get developed with the food truck roadie and all these other, LeClaire's only has 2 parking spots. It is a challenge that we're trying to get all the key stakeholders together to the table to have a meaningful conversation, because we are actually not in competition with many of our neighbors. We're at 9, so you got the post office, you got the church, but as that area continues to develop, it is a continual point of conversation, and what we're trying to do right now is quietly bring people to a table, and we do have a strategy. It just requires investment from all of the different key stakeholders. So we are working on it, and we are so profoundly aware that it is one of the pressure points for us.
Any more questions? Mike.
I'd like, that's what I'm saying, I know it's on there for a presentation, but I'd ask the board for at least a consensus on getting a resolution together to send to Billy and, the rest of our delegation, saying that we are in support of HB, whatever it is, and SB, whatever. And in fact, I think one of the next presenters, we might be able to give it to him if he's here yet. I don't see him yet, but Senate bill, we could give it to Senator Deviere, who I think might be either presenting or in the audience, but, anyway, that's what,
Is that a motion?
well, I don't think, I don't, that's what I'm saying, since it's on for a presentation, I don't know what the proper thing is to do a motion, or just, it is?
You can do a motion, yes.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying, I'd move that we, direct the, chairman to prepare a resolution showing support for the Cape Fear Regional Theater, renovation that's going on right now, and send it to our legislative delegation.
Is there a second? Commissioner Council. All in favor?
Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you.
Staff can take care of that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the time. Thank you. We
We're
really
looking
appreciate it.
forward to that corner of Hay Street and Highland Avenue.
Yeah, that's right.
We're looking forward to it expanding with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And maybe we can work out a deal with the Performing Arts Center and all that can be tied into it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy. Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item 3B was also requested by Commissioner Booth. It was actually discussion at your June agenda session about the board receiving an update on the initiative Pathways for Prosperity, and I'm going to recognize Adam Balkup. I believe he's the one that's going to be leading the presentation. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, commissioners. Do we have the PowerPoint in the system? Not sure. Well, I can do this without it, surely. No problem. Okay, so, again, my name is Adam Sabalto. I'm the Deputy Director for Policy and Advocacy with the North Carolina Justice Center. And the Justice Center serves as a partner and consultant to the Pathways for Prosperity Coalition. I'm joining you today on behalf of the coalition. And I'd like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to speak with you today and for the efforts that you and your staff have made to include the community voice in your planning for continued recovery from COVID-19 and for exploring ways to center those efforts on those who need it most. For those of you who are less familiar, Pathways for Prosperity, or P4P, is chaired by Senator Kirk Deviere. He is in committee meetings today. The legislature could not be present. Councilman Larry Wright and community advocate Cynthia Wilson. P4P largely emerged as a response to troubling findings in the 2015 Harvard Study on Economic Mobility. It has since grown into a coalition of nonprofit organizations, local government agencies, and concerned residents advocating for policy and systems change to interrupt cycles of poverty. Many of you will remember our community process that started in 2017, culminating in 5 focus areas. We recently added health as a 6th, along with a comprehensive action plan with goals and strategies for each area. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some of the coalition partners who are with us today, who have really been driving the work forward in each of those focus areas. For affordable housing, he is not here today, but Carl Manning with Kingdom CDC, Councilman Wright and Cynthia Wilson have also been very involved as chairs in that area. Life Skills, Cerise Collins and Tamika Bright with Communities in Schools. K-12 Advocacy, Demetrius Haddock with our Community Interagency Council on Quality Education. Early Childhood Education, Mary Sonnenberg with Partnership for Children. And Workforce Industry Alignment, Robert Van Gans, Fayetteville, Cumberland County, EDC. The health focus area is still in a nascent stage, but we certainly want to acknowledge our colleagues with Carolina Collaborative Community Care for that work. And thanks very much. Okay. So this is a brief visual of the 15 census tracts that comprise our 11 priority communities, where poverty is most concentrated. In some of these tracts, the poverty rate is 2 to 3 times the overall county rate. The one area that's not in view is Census Tract 29, or the southeast corner of Cumberland County. And the goal is to intentionally drive resources into these areas. Most of these tracts map to the HUD qualified census tracts, or QCTs, and that will have relevance later as we discuss the ARP. I'll share just a couple of highlights that the coalition has been involved in over the past year. First, the coalition played an important role in facilitating community engagement for the City of Fayetteville's affordable housing study, which was completed in early spring. We also supported the city's successful application for a federal Choice Neighborhoods grant to revitalize the Murchison Road corridor. Further, we helped a local nonprofit, Communities in Schools, expand Parent University, now available in 5 schools serving high-need communities. Parent University, which got its start in Walker Spivey Elementary, works to bring services, referrals, and supports directly to families through resource fairs and individual case management. On K-12 advocacy, the P4P Community Interagency Council recently offered
offer recommendations to CCS to reduce the district's reliance on out-of-school suspensions and to reduce their disparate impact on students of color. We have, of course, pivoted over the past year to look at ways COVID-19 has impacted low-income families in ways that we can support the response. I'm going to refer here to the one-pager that should be included in your agenda packets. I also have some paper copies. I've got about 10 copies that we'd be happy to share around. That would be helpful. Thank you very much. So while that's going around, I think it really cannot be overstated that the American Rescue Plan offers a tremendous opportunity to make investments that will help low-income families and energize the local economy at the same time. A few examples from our letter that I will lift up. This isn't all of the recommendations that the coalition made, but there are a handful that we really wanted to lift. First, a housing trust fund, either established solely within the county or in partnership with the city. In addition to generating an itself, a housing trust fund can provide gap financing for affordable housing development, incentives for income-diverse housing projects, funds for a first-time homebuyer program to help community members build wealth, landlord and housing manager training, and improvements in the quality of our existing housing stock. Importantly, there are a few jurisdictions in the Southeast that have designated ARP funds for housing trust funds. Recent examples include Nashville, which recently set aside $20 million, and Richmond has set aside $7 million. We mentioned Parent University earlier. The investment that we recommended in our letter will enable 10 to 12 new student support specialists to be placed in targeted schools for a period of 3 years, bringing additional case management, referrals, and resources to the community. Setting up a revolving loan fund can provide a sustainable financial tool to facilitate growth of small businesses and increase access to capital, particularly for individuals historically excluded from that access. And finally, increasing broadband access and affordability for low-income households will not only advance digital equity, but also complement the strategic effort to increase coverage across the county. Haywood County is also leveraging the ARP funds for that purpose. So that is really what I wanted to share, a brief update on the coalition's activities, and then in particular, some of the things that we're recommending given the opportunity that the ARP funding offers. I'm sure that the P4P chairs or other members of the coalition will be happy to answer questions, but if there are any at this time, and if appropriate, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any questions they finance by the board? Yes.
You listed a bunch of names, and I recognized a good portion of them, but do they meet monthly? Who appointed them? Who makes up the board, decides the board? Who has the authority to write checks? I mean, what happens if, they get 50 million? All right, who says what they're going to do with it, and who cuts the check?
Right, sir. So I think it's important for me to share that Pathways for Prosperity is a coalition. That we are not a 501c3. We don't take in dollars and we don't spend them. We are a collection of folks from local government entities, nonprofits, local businesses who come together to look at policy options and share those.
Okay, so on the sheet on recommended use of the ARP funds, then let's go right to the first one.
Sure.
The Housing Trust Fund, the city with 10, the county with 10, they would determine what to do with their 10, we would determine what to do with our 10?
Yes, sir. The recommendations in the letter are for the respective entities. We made similar recommendations to the city and to the county. If I may, I can add one footnote. The guidance recently updated through the Treasury does allow for contracting with appropriate nonprofits. There's a few that we share as examples who may be good candidates with whom the city or the county or both may partner, but that is an allowable use of the fund, ARP funds, if you wanted to money, for example, or revolving loan fund through a nonprofit partner. But again, PRP is a coalition.
Let's go back to that question, if you don't mind. Let's go back to what you just answered about, as far as the finances are concerned with the county and with the city. And by them not, those entities giving them to your organization because you're not a 501c3. So the determination on what's to use those funds for that we're allocating, we make those decisions based on your recommendation.
Yes, sir. And the FAQ guidance from Treasury is very helpful in confirming given uses. And I mentioned the qualified census tracts. There is greater flexibility with respect to the use of those funds, particularly with regards to affordable housing development, for example, or for support like Parent University, which looks to connect families to resources. That flexibility is greater within qualified census tracts. That's why it's such an important fact that a lot of the QCTs really map with the areas of concentrated poverty, here within the county. But yes, within the bounds of Treasury guidance, and this is where your staff certainly will be helpful, you make those decisions, and you can do it piecemeal, but I'm not going to get into the admin part of it. Yes, sir, that would be for you and for the city council.
And so the decisions that are made by, but there will be guidance from your organization as to which direction we should be going.
Yes, sir, the one-pager offers those suggestions. Our longer letter that we shared in April, I'm happy to reshare that if that would be helpful, offers recommendations to get the greatest amount of return on those dollars, particularly for low-income families, those families who are severely cost burdened with respect to housing, or those families who could benefit from the affordability program that we suggest relative to broadband, for example.
Well, that would be great, because I think that with your guidance and understanding what areas need to be hit for low to moderate to income families, there are a number of people that don't have a clue as to what needs to be done to assist those individuals. So with your guidance, that would be welcome.
Sir, I'm happy to make myself and other colleagues available for, at whatever time would be convenient to talk through even other examples from other jurisdictions and share ideas.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That moves us to our consideration of agenda items. Item 4A is the local workforce development area annual plan for program year 2021. I'd like to welcome Justin Henry, the Executive Director of Mid-Carolina Council of Governments.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I think this is the first time that I've appeared in front of you all since the transition of the Workforce Development Program to the Council of Governments. That's going well, and I'm not going to take up a whole bunch of time this afternoon. I know you've got a packed agenda, but at some point, maybe we can schedule a time that I can come back and give you a formal presentation about where we are with workforce, what's happening, where we're going, all those sorts of things. But today specifically that's on your agenda for consideration of action to send it to your next board meeting is the review and approval of the local workforce development area annual plan for the current program year, for program year 2021. As you'll note in the agenda packet, WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which is the federal program that provides workforce funding and establishes the regulations for carrying out workforce programs on the local level, requires that each area develop a 4-year workforce development plan. And Cumberland County's workforce development plan, actually the 4-year cycle started with the adoption of the 4-year plan last year in 2020. So this is the first annual update for that, for the program year that began July 1, 2020. You'll notice that we're about a month late in getting this. transition that took place. And when we talk about a plan, this is not a plan per se like you're used to seeing with a strategic plan that highlights specific targeted priorities, outcomes, how we're going to get there. There's some of that in there, but basically this is a document that is intended to provide the state and in turn the federal government with information they need about the way local workforce development programs are operating. And I would venture to say, although I don't know this for sure, but if you look at other local workforce development plans and annual updates across the state, they're going to look very familiar. Really, most of the updates that are included in this plan deal with changing the name of the administering agency from Cumberland County to Mid-Carolina, myself being listed as the Workforce Development Director, sort of other technical changes of that nature. There's no substantial changes in terms of programmatic activities for youth, dislocated workers, incumbent workers, business services, all of those things that we work with workforce development. One of the things that I will note, and there's a whole laundry list of federal and state requirements when we're going through this process. One of those is that the plan be advertised and that it be available for public review. We went through that process. It was advertised. It was available for public review actually more than 30 days. 30 days is what's required. I think we actually had it posted for closer to 45 or 50 days. So we exceeded those requirements. And I'll say this, and this is probably what would be better for another presentation. This is not the be-all and end-all for planning for workforce development in Cumberland County. This deals with a very tiny portion of the overall program. And when I say tiny, it's large when it comes to dollars, but in terms of an overall workforce development program, WIOA is and should be a small part of that. So we're taking steps. I actually got a meeting tomorrow, and we're going to be working on, over the next 4 to 6 months, putting an action plan together of what we want. And when I say we, I mean collectively partners, and we'll be reaching out to you all, a lot of other folks. What do we want our workforce development program to look like on the local level, and what's going to get us there? Now, this will certainly inform that process, but again, this is not the be-all and end-all. It's an important document. It lays out clearly what the state and the feds want us to do in terms of requirements. It's not the be-all and end-all. So we're requesting, and actually, I guess what the action would be at your regular board meeting was that the board accept and approve this annual update for the local workforce development plan, and in turn, what that would do is authorize Chairman Evans to sign that. He's the chief elected official for the workforce plan. But I would be glad to answer any questions, either as it relates to the plan or any other general questions that you have right now.
Are there any questions or comments at this time?
So we're
Yes, Mrs.
We're including this on our Monday agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, Glenn.
I make a motion that we move the Cumberland County Local Workforce Development Area Plan to the consent agenda for the August 16th, 2021 Board of Commissioners regular meeting for approval, and allow the chairman to execute those documents and pass.
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous. May I clarify the second, please? Thank you.
And again, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Good seeing you all.
Madam Manager.
Item 4B is removal of Appendix B from the Cumberland County Code of Ordinance. This will be presented by our Planning and Inspections Director, Mr. Ross Howard.
You did a great job the other day at our meeting with us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Commissioner. So the item I have for you today, Commissioners, could probably fairly be termed as a cleanup operation or a cleanup action. For those of you that recall, most recently we went through the 160D updates to our subdivision and our zoning ordinance. Staff has been working with a standalone subdivision ordinance in our department for the better part of a couple decades. And I believe a copy of that subdivision ordinance is actually attached to in your agenda packet, you can see it. So after we had adopted that, we went through the cleanup and all that. We went through the code of ordinances on our muni code and noticed that there was an appendix B in there that also has the subdivision language in it. And so what this does, or this request is contemplating, is that much like Appendix A, we had an Appendix A in our code that actually had our zoning standards in it. They were removed because we have a standalone zoning ordinance. And then we had a little sentence in there that said if you wanted to see the zoning ordinance, you just go to the Planning and Inspections Department or on our website. All that we're asking is an identical action be taken for the subdivision ordinance. We've been operating on a standalone ordinance for years and years and years. So we think that pulling it out is a good idea. Plus it can cut down on the confusion if you're a citizen trying to find the subdivision ordinance and you by chance happen to find it in the muni code that we are operating on the most current ordinance, which is in our office. So this is just simply just an action. So staff is not asking for any technical changes to standards. We're asking that this just simply be put on a consent agenda for the 16th after talking with legal. Since we don't have any kind of technical changes, no public hearing is required for this action. So I'll try to answer what I can.
Are there any questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to put it on the agenda.
See a second? All in favor?
Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we'll move to item 4D. This is removal of the historical and future late fees for materials at the Cumberland County Public Library. Ms. Faith Phillips, our library director, will present this item.
Ms. Phillips, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for your involvement with the press conference.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners, members of the leadership team. So I am here to ask for the removal of historic and future late fees at the Cumberland County Public Library. And to do that, I want to give you a little background and a little knowledge and context of late fees. So in my presentation, I want to show, like I said, the background. Late fees as barriers to two of the main initiatives that the county has right now: diversity, equity, and inclusion, recruitment and retention. I want to show that late fees are not a fiscally responsible return on our investment. I want to show data from other systems, and then my recommendation and questions. Late fees. Our late fees for library materials were paused during COVID-19. And the way this took place is that books were automatically renewed for customers. This allowed for us to have a strategic evaluation of our collection and our policies and procedures. Right now, pre-COVID, we were charging 20 cents per day per item with a max of $5 charged in late fees per item. But if a customer or community member had $10 of late fees or fines on their account, they were blocked from checking out library material. So let's think about children's books, just to do an example. When I go in with my son, we get 10 to 20 books. If I had just 2 books that were late fees, we would be blocked. Right now, Cumberland County Public Library has a total of 146,051 borrowers with library cards. Of those, 34% of our borrowers are inactive and have fees that prohibit them from accessing library materials. Of those, almost 10,000 of those are juvenile, so they're under 18. Late fees is a revenue source for the library. It's been a decreasing trend over the last 5 years. You can see the numbers on the screen and was also in the memo in your packet. And we also did not collect those due to COVID-19. When we did our library budget for fiscal year 2022, we did have a conservative budget estimate because of COVID-19. So when you look at the total revenue that the library has with late fees and fines and what it brings in, late fees are only a small percentage of the revenue we bring in, and I've broken it down. And you'll see here it averages about 30% of what we bring in. The others are other fines and fees, and that comes from customers who have long that book item to repay it. So I want to go back and the number of residents who earn below the poverty line is above state average. I want to show you a breakdown with two different zip codes in Cumberland County so you can see this barrier in action. The comparison of 28305 to 28314. We have 495 customers in 28305 that are blocked. You can see in that area the home values and income. You see that there's a higher percentage with a bachelor's degree or higher, and you can see the demographic makeup on the screen. If you go to 28314, 5,438 of those customers are blocked. The median home values are below state average, and and the median household income is below state average. 28.4% have bachelor degrees or higher, and you can see the demographic data. So you can see the research shows us that late fees target historically underserved areas. This is how it's playing out in our community right here. And so this is how it breaks down for all the zip codes. Like I said, it does not promote equitable access to materials because we're putting fines on those who are historically underserved. So how does it relate to recruitment and retention? How does library fines relate? Well, one, you can see on the screen that there are a number of our systems in the state that have gone fine-free. Most notably, I want to point out our neighbor to the south, Robeson County, went fine-free in 2019. They were one of the leaders in the state to do this. So in the library world is small. And so in that, Cumberland County Library is one of the big 5 systems in the state. In order to recruit and retain the top talent, Cumberland County wants to be talked about as we're an innovative system. We're a system that's promoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we want to recruit and retain that top talent. So taking this barrier away shows the library community, shows our peers that we are committed to these ideals and trends in the library world, and it makes us a top recruiter. So like I mentioned before, it will establish us as a library leader. So I want to go to return on investment. So I've talked to my staff, and what happens when a customer comes in and they have late fees. The staff report that it takes a minimum of 15 to 30 minutes to assist a customer who has late fees. That could be explaining the fee, explaining the different payment options. Let's be real here. Sometimes things escalate to managers. I've had customers with late fees. So that can take another 15 to 30 minutes of talking with customers. If you use the base salary of $15 an hour, the return on investment for the amount of money we get back, it's not equitable. And furthermore, with the return on investment, the library has been using a collection agency called Unique Management Solutions to collect our materials or late funds back. So when we use Unique Management Solutions, the library staff gather all of the data of who needs to be called. They then work with the company. So that's staff time there. They work with the company. And then the company takes and calls customers. If we get the materials back, or if we get the money, we pay $9 per call that this company makes, and we could do it ourselves, to be completely honest. And then we take and we are charging a $10 collection fee to our customers to pay for the cost of this service. And who are underserved and putting more fees and barriers to them. Also, implementation steps, if this were to be approved, I would work with PIO office and the team to ensure that it's incorporated into a large-scale marketing campaign, because this is a great way to show off what you're doing for the community and to create a lot of goodwill. Thank you for your time, and do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Adams.
I have a question. I got a couple of questions. I think it's a great program, okay? But I would ask this, how is that any different if we just did an amnesty every whatever number of months?
That's a great question. And so there are actually,
Well, I mean, it's, you know,
so I've seen it in a couple of different ways. So I've seen amnesty weeks or amnesty days. And so Chicago Public Library did one, and they brought in 20,000 overdue items. So the way that I would run this in tandem if I were doing it, I would have this launch like we're going fine-free in conjunction with amnesty, because this would not be for those who have like books that are lost, right? Because that's recouping the cost of that. But if you're like, okay, it's being pushed to get the material.
well, I didn't see the amnesty, and that's why I was asking that. My second question is, and I guess it's because you just didn't want to go that far, but I did see in the presentation that you would still look to collect for lost items, which I didn't quite understand, because if I've got a lost item, I'm just not coming back to the library, so you ain't gonna collect that anyway. So why wouldn't we just go, I mean, I don't know how we charge per book or music or video or whatever, is to set that at some small fee, whatever it is, and at $10 whatever, the item's lost, we're not gonna get it back, but we might get that, that person back. So can we go a little further and get rid of the lost book just doesn't make sense. I mean, whatever the lost item is, if your statistics are right, is if I got late fees, I'm not coming back. Clearly, if I got a lost fee, I'm not coming back, right? So I know you didn't want to go that far, but would you be opposed to going that far? Because I think we need to go that far.
I would agree with you. And the reason why I would agree with you, if you look at the number of late fees, like in our catalog of what it is, it's like $2 million, and it's the lost books. 1 million of that, so half of that is from pre-2014.
Right.
I mean, it's from a system migration. We don't know the names and the contacts. So if the commissioners were willing to go that far, I would not be opposed to that at all.
I figured you didn't want to go that far. I figured you wanted to get this free stuff first. So I'm going to be the proponent, because I'm the library guy, because right, and they always talk about me, to go that far, to go ahead. I mean, there's no reason to do that, because we're not going to get the item back. I mean, let's just be realistic about it. I don't think we advertise that we don't do that, but I think that we need to go that far.
Quick question. How was it? Oh, okay. Go ahead, sir. No, go ahead. Quick question. When Glenn was talking about amnesty and the return of books and things of that nature, what would that do to the collection agency that you have, or the collection phone calls?
Oh, I'm getting rid of them.
They're gone.
They're gone.
They're gone. They would be gone. Yeah.
She's able to that. She good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with what Glenn said. I would just try to figure out, do I need to go in and meet with you and say I lost it, or you know, I didn't lose it. It's just that the fine's so large, I'd like you to forgive me for it. Well, I just go, okay, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, I agree. We ought to just go ahead and wrap it all up one, and if we don't want to lose that reader. So that, I agree with that one.
I had 5 kids. I would find a book 3 years later. Yeah, and they would think it was lost, but it wasn't lost. It was just under a stack of clothes somewhere. And I was crazy. And I'd find it 3 years later. So I mean, but you know, you have your head down walking into the library all embarrassed.
And you want to get rid of that feeling.
Right, you want to get rid of that's the goodwill, right? That's the goodwill. Come on in the library.
Yeah, and I likewise had 5 kids, and I found the same old books, and it was always generally when they switched grades. When they switched grades, and they finally touched, you could hear them when you bring them out there, because they would snap, because they hadn't been opened all year long. But then I'd bring them back, and that's better than we gave it to you. I said, yeah, I know they cleaned it up before they gave it back. But so I understand that. My wife has at least 5 books a week. She's a binge reader.
Wonderful.
Once she finds an author she's in, and I'm in there in the rain running up there to avoid the 20 cents. She was like, that'll be $4. And I go, oh. It was can you drop the part about like, I got that poor uneducated people either steal or they're just absent-minded, and they're just not gonna give books back, they don't care about books, they're stealing books or something like that. I find that the exact opposite, and Glenn probably does too, and the clients that want to better themselves, they're in that zip code, because I send them, you gotta be in Fort Worth.
It's the bus route. You
Well,
gotta take the
that's
bus
what,
to get
yeah,
there.
so, that, you know, so, but I just, if you present that somewhere else, I'd really like you to leave that page out, because you say, if you have above a college degree, you're probably gonna return the book. And if you make more than the state income average, you're probably gonna return the book. If you're poor and you don't have any education, you're probably gonna lose it, steal it, pawn it, sell it, or something. So, you know, whatever reason they're not bringing it back, they're just not bringing it back. Yeah, it's not, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just, that's the only one I went like this on. And I agree, I'm a little concerned about just forgiving everybody. The fines I'm no problem with, but I think we ought to not hold 16-year-olds accountable to the same standard that we hold older, wiser people to bring books back. And if Glenn accumulates 10 books, we might not want to give him the 11th. I mean, there ought to be something to where adults, 21 and above, you just can't do a home library because you periodically have.
Put no more work on them than that. They have to
No,
do all
you,
that. Don't give me any more work.
you periodically have book giveaways anyway. So if I'm making a home library, I just wait for you to say,
Yes,
we're having a book giveaway and it's going to be primarily children's books. And, you know, he's got 5 kids and grandkids and stuff, so I'll be down there fighting him for a free book off the shelf or something. But I really do have a problem with just saying, come get a book, take it home, don't worry about it. That I don't want to get to that.
And I definitely agree with you. And first, I want to thank you for your comments and your feedback on the presentation. I did not intend the numbers to be that way. But I totally appreciate it. I will do that in the future. What I wanted to do is to show that, you know, I can say what the data and the studies say across the country, but I wanted to show how it is in our part.
I think chasing readers away is huge. I think especially young readers, if you kick them out the door and punish them for screwing up, then I think that's a terrible, terrible thing. You know, some of us might have had juvenile records. I mean, some of y'all might have had juvenile records. And if you didn't get on the straight and narrow, you might have been a whole lot different. But yeah, I just didn't like that the income and education level suddenly made you, and everything else they got to hear about, you're a book thief. And so I just said, let's not put it on all of their back on that too. So
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Question. Number one, and I'm sure everybody has noticed this, thank you for your enthusiasm.
You're welcome.
I tell you the truth, I want you to do some staff development on loving your job, making people feel good and all that stuff. But my question is this, do you have an idea about whatever you've lost and you didn't bring back? Is it a $5 book? Would it be a $14 book? I mean, is there an average somewhere? When you guys go out and buy books, I mean, what's an expensive book to lose?
That is an excellent question. So the cost of books ranges based upon the type of book and the subject. And so you have some of our nonfiction books that are your more specialized, your university presses, that kind of thing. They can range pretty expensive. But some of our trade kind of mass market paperbacks, they're a lot cheaper. So they would range more in the, you know, the lower range.
Are we talking a $30 book?
No, those would be more in the probably $5 to $10 range. And then now some of your nonfiction books, they can range to be in the hundreds of dollars.
I'm bringing Moby Dick back to you, don't you, Captain? 1958.
Excellent.
You've been over there, I know you did.
Okay, Ms. Allen.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the consideration and elimination of the historical and the future late fees for the Cumberland County Public Library, and as to those lost books also.
All in favor?
And then move to the agenda, the consent agenda.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item 4E is the Fayetteville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau bylaw change. And Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, today I'm joined with our interim CEO and President, Randy Fidash, and the business manager, Kelly Brill. And so when Mr. Fidash was brought on as a contractor with CVB, the Board of Directors Five Ash to take a look at the operations and the bylaws and the makeup of the Board of Directors. And so today, the Board of Directors is asking for approval of bylaw amendments that were approved by the CVB Board. And they really center around two areas. The first is the addition for virtual meetings, conference calls, and other electronic communications. There's a paragraph in the body of the memorandum that describes the electronic meetings in the virtual world were not included as an appropriate means for holding a meeting, and so that has been added. Secondly, Mr. Five Ash made a recommendation to the Board of Directors about the makeup of the Board of Directors. And just for your reference, currently the voting members on the Board of Directors, there are 11 voting members, 5 of which are appointed by the Board of Commissioners. The county manager is a voting member, as well as Crown Representative Mr. Grafstrom is on the Board of Directors and is a voting member. Currently, the Convention and Visitors Bureau has 2 seats that they appoint on the Board of Directors out of the 11 voting members.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Currently, the Convention and Visitors Bureau appoints 2 seats.
So they appoint themselves?
2 seats.
They appoint themselves? They appoint.
Yes. And the city manager is a voting member, as well as the Airborne and Special Operations Museum representative. And so the goal here is to diversify some of the seats. Right now, they're all centered on hotel, motel representatives. And there is a belief that others in the industry, in the restaurant business, attractions, and anything related to tourism should be on the Board of Directors and not all be centered around hotel motels. And so the changes that are presented today for your consideration about whether to move forward is 4 seats would be appointed by, and I've put a sheet at your desk that kind of lays this out. It's this sheet. It's a 1-page.
I write on that. Sometimes I take blends, but I don't.
And so going forward, the commissioners would appoint 1 from a hotel motel with under 100 rooms, 1 with over 100 rooms. Previously, these 2 categories had 2 representatives in each category, and it's very difficult to find individuals that fit this category that live within Cumberland County. So they're reducing those categories from 2 each to 1 each. And then the commissioners would continue to appoint an at-large representative. The new seat that you would appoint would be a local business related to tourism, again, a restaurant, local attraction. And then the CVB would have 3 seats that they appoint. 1 with a hotel or motel with 6,000 plus square feet of meeting space, 1 hotel motel representative without a room restriction, and then a local business representative. And then on the back page, another addition is some non-voting ex officio positions. And what they're recommending in the bylaws is the TDA would be invited to participate as an ex officio if a member of the CVB was invited to participate on their board. It's a reciprocal type of arrangement. The bylaws would also state that the Airborne and Special Operations Museum Foundation president would be a voting member, and then the other 3 that, again, are myself, the CEO, Policy and Crown Manager, and then the City of Fayetteville Manager. And so with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. And you may have questions for our interim CEO.
Any questions, comments? Seem pretty funny, right?
I always have.
Yes, Commissioner.
You know, I always have some, right? I got two sets of questions. My first question is, I see all the non-voting ex officio members. How do we get to the ASOM is the only voting member? That makes no sense to me. I don't think they ought to be a voting member. Plus, part of it, when I think we get the minutes and stuff from the TDA and sometimes from the CVB, they actually ask for funds. And I think that's a conflict. I mean, I don't think you can sit on the board and ask for funds for a board that appoints your board that does that. That just doesn't sit well. I don't have a problem with them being a non-voting member. They can be there with everybody else. I think that's much cleaner than having them as a voting member asking for money. That's the first. So I bring that to the board's attention. The other thing is that under section, whatever it is, it says any director appointed by the board of directors may be removed by the board, but it doesn't give a procedure of how to do that. Is it 3/4 members, 2/4 members? It doesn't have, in what I got on the sheet that came on the computer and all the red and everything, it just said they can be removed. It says if they thought they're not doing, we're in the judgment of the board of directors, the best interest of this corporation will be served thereby. You know, maybe I'm just a mean, bad person. People don't like me, so they don't think I'm in the best interest, because I don't see any procedure for that. I don't see a process. And I think everybody ought to know what the process is.
I think that's a good point, and at this point, there's not a written process for it.
So I think, I think the board should be able to, and it looks like it's just to their members and not just.
It is just to those three that they.
But I think that they have, because they do get these funds from the TDA, if I'm on the board, I ought to know the process, whether it's I missed 4 meetings, or I missed 3 meetings, or, I'm getting money from somewhere. But I think that we really got to know, I think everybody ought to be able to know what it is, what my appointment is. So I think we need to have that somewhere brought back or something.
Quick question. Originally, was there a process? Was there a process in place?
That is a new item.
That's
a new item, that's a change.
So that doesn't in there, but that's, so, anytime you're gonna remove people, I think you have to know what the process is. Don't we come up here and have 4 people vote with this evening?
I'd be uneasy with approving this today too with some other changes. If you look on page 1, we appoint a hotel motel under 100 rooms. Now, I'm not trying to be too judgmental, but I just don't know of any largely profitable places that I send my family to go stay in, and even on those that I do know of, there's so few that it's like they take turns. Like when someone can't be appointed a 3rd term, you're in, and then after he's done, back to me. And so, and then they get a double dip, because you have down here that they can appoint a hotel motel representative. So you basically can keep on the board by coming off of the under 100, but be their generic hotel or hotel motel. And then the hotel motel over 100 rooms is the only one you're going to find that has on theirs with 6,000 plus meeting space. The 100 and under is not going to have 6,000 seating for 6,000. So you're limiting that one right there to a hotel motel representative of 100 rooms or more. So it looks like there's a possibility of 4 people just taking turns, or at least 2 taking turns.
So I think if I'm correct, there's 6 venues that have over 6,000 square feet. So there's 6 hotels.
Okay, 6. Out of 340,000 people, 6 people are the only pool we have to get this representative.
But I do like the fact, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I do like the fact that they did enlarge those hotel motels to not just owners. in here, they went to general manager, owner, whatever, so it enlarges to 6. It's not just, if you look in here, I understand what you're saying, it's more than 6 people, because now the old way was you had to own the hotel. Under this new section, that's why I didn't bother that, under the new section, you could be, I don't know where it is, you could be the general manager, you could work there, you could be whatever, so that enlarges that pool for those 6. So, and the issue is, I guess, is they generate these funds. I mean, the hotel and motels generate these funds that are being used, and I think they ought to have a good voice in it if they're the ones who are, generating those funds, because,
Well, like an at-large, we might, or the local business, we might be, is SEGRA a local business because it's here, but owned by the Astros out of state? So that, so that, something that large, doesn't have a chance at this unless it's the at-large person. If they want to be advocates for those over 100 rooms and have to have 6,000, that eliminates every business but a 6,000 person hotel. And that's, like you said, that narrows it down to 6 and maybe a little bit larger. I'm just saying how many there is if I have to come off because I'm over 100 rooms, I can still be back on because my place has 6,000
or somebody in your.
Yeah, if we have a business that we really want to put on there, we have one chance, which is two at large.
Well,
I just, we might have 4 dynamic companies coming here because last I heard, Cumberland County is out of property. We have businesses coming in here, they're going to employ thousands of people. You know how much they'll have on, convention and visitors bureaus if it's like, they actually have a meeting site or a convention. What about a convention and business
on
bureau?
this sheet, it says local business, but on page 2, it is one business representative within the county of Cumberland operating an attraction, restaurant, or other local business affected by tourism elected by the county commissioners.
Okay,
I'll do that.
yes.
And I was asking Mr. Bush, if the board decides, again, because I think of the conflict, that the airborne and special operations don't get that seat, make that a commission appointee, then you have to be seen at large, and you can each other. I can see it.
Okay, do we have a motion? Any more questions, comments, first of all? Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve this, that the one that has that airborne and special operation become a county commissioner at large for a local business, and that within 6 months they bring back the provision for removing from the board of directors.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed?
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next item, Madam Manager.
Next item on the agenda is item 4F, amendment to the personnel ordinance section 501F. Vicki Evans.
Welcome, Mrs. Evans.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Because of the recent influx of federal funds, including the $65 million in the American Rescue Plan funds, my staff and I have been comparing federal procurement laws to county policy, and we believe that our policy can be strengthened in the area of conflict of interest. So we're making a request to amend the personnel ordinance so that the county is fully compliant with federal procurement standards within number 2 of the Code of Federal Regulations 200.318 General Procurement Standards. That portion of the regulation requires that we maintain written standards of conduct covering conflicts of interest and govern the actions of our employees engaged in the selection, award, and administration of contracts. To summarize the language added to the personnel ordinance, an employee or official may not participate in the contracts process supported by a federal award if they have a real or apparent conflict of interest, and the statement goes into detail from there. So that federal language that's included within the attachment to your agenda from the Code of Federal Regulation into the personnel ordinance. And all of that is shown in red in track changes in your packet. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Motion approved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I did have one question though.
Yes, sir.
I did have one.
No, how about two?
No, just one.
No,
No, I like what they have. Do we have that for any state award? Because money's gonna be coming down from the state, so this one just says federal, and I know you took the language directly out of there, but if some of this infrastructure money and all this other money comes from the state, do we have, I just read the red part that you gave me, because that was a good part. But is there a provision there, any, just like the federal award, any state award?
So this language is specific to the Code of Federal Regulations. The state has state statute.
Commissioner, I think you look above that, like at number 3, that's referencing one of the state statutes. We do. Actually, I think all of this language in both the federal and state is covered generally, but this is just a direct quote from some of this state and federal law that makes it clear that we're covered.
I got you. I see.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
The clerk is asking to be recognized.
Excuse me?
The clerk.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Chairman and Commissioners, if it's not stated to forward to the August 16th consent agenda, do I just assume for purposes of will go forward as such?
My belief is everything we've done so far goes to the 16th. So we'll try to be, and it's been unanimous, so if not, that's a rider that I'll add on to everything. And I'll try to be more consistent in the future.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item 4G is a radio tower lease agreement with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, the Forestry Division. Mr. Jackson.
Any questions, comments?
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We have for you a requested lease agreement from the North Carolina Division of Forestry Services. They have leased space on a radio tower located at the top of the old Highsmith Marine Hospital at 109 Bradford for many years. The radio antenna and equipment provides local and regional communications for fire departments and other responders when wildfires occur. Since the county provides a large portion of our local Forest Service district's funding, staff is recommending a low rental rate for this tower lease. And if you are so inclined, staff recommends approval of the lease agreement and requests this item be moved forward to the August 16th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting as a consent agenda item.
Commissioner Council.
I move that we move it to the 16th meeting as consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you.
The movie property second, all in favor? Thank you.
Item 4H is amended scope of work with the Wooten Company for the Board of Commissioners meeting room and associated budget ordinance amendment 220082. So Jermaine Walker, our county engineer, will present this item.
Welcome, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the commissioners. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this project. So just to quickly recap, we started this process back in April of 2021 when we were examining 2 locations for the expansion of a commissioner's meeting room, rooms 118 and 119 downstairs, which we had projected the renovation budget on that to be somewhere around $2.235 million. And then also taking, into consideration the historic courthouse, where at the time we considered the renovation to be roughly $2.6 million. When we examined that renovation, being the technology and infrastructure improvements. So when we look to expand that scope to include those above mentioned items, and also the opening up of the balcony and the floor space, we proposed to expand that scope and come back with a proposal of somewhere around $4,000 for Wooten to complete that study. And then that leads us to the June 10th agenda session, in which the board asked, well, what would be the total cost to renovate the entire building from the basement through the third floor working spaces? Because if we had just renovated the second floor, there would have been a huge disparity between the appearance of the second floor and the facilities in relation to the workspace of the rest of the building and what we would present to the general public.
Now, before you go any further,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I missed the point where you were talking about the additional cost that was unexpected. I think I missed that.
Yes, sir. So when Wooten presented originally back in April, the proposed cost at $2.6 million, it did not include the cost for the executive meeting room for the commissioners, technology and infrastructure improvements, the second floor bathroom with ADA upfits, and then also what I would call unforeseen site conditions, but expected as far as plumbing upgrades within that building.
Okay, so all that was not included.
No, sir.
Okay.
And so we had proposed that we would go back and capture those costs in a $4,000 addition to additional study in which Wooten would do. And then that's
$4,000 for another study.
It was, so the first study was very limited in scope,
Okay.
extremely limited. It looked at two options. It looked at expansion of room 118, and it looked at renovation of the hearing room in the historic courthouse. So that scope was very narrow. So when it was brought back, Wooten explained that because of the timing, that there was not enough time to get the cost for all the audio, visual, and technology. There is no technology in that hearing room, but that was going to take an additional amount of time. And when we were comparing just room to room, 118 to that room, it did not include the fact that the bathrooms, restrooms are not ADA compliant and are very limited in number. And so that was an additional step. And so when we brought that back, then the last time we brought it back, and that's where Mr. Walker was actually going on the next step, was that the board expanded the scope, and that was to move, what would it cost to move the county manager's office, the clerk to the board, and the commissioner's offices, and the county attorney's office over to the historic courthouse. And so Mr. Walker has worked with Wooten to get a cost concept. And so we're bringing that back for consideration. That was at the June agenda session.
But you keep saying 3,000, it's 32,000, right?
Yes.
32,000.
32,000.
Yeah.
You said, you said, you said 3, but it's
Well, I
32,000.
said 4,000 for the first expanded scope, which we brought back to the board in June.
Right.
So under the
Yes.
board's
But
direction,
this was 32.
Well, it will be if you decide to move forward with it.
yes.
Okay. Commissioner Council.
This seems to be, we're going in a direction that eliminates all the studies that we did beforehand. Okay? Some years ago, we're talking about either enlarging this building or, I mean, where's all this money coming from?
Well, you know,
Yes, sir.
I guess my question, which is what I asked on this, I couldn't get me over there. How many of us want to go to the historical park? I mean, we just keep putting money in a study that if we're not wanting to go there, there's really no reason to keep doing this. I mean, not that they keep coming back. We keep adding on, so it's not their fault. But because every time it comes, we want a little bit more grandeur or whatever. But favor of spending any more money on that. That's just one person, but I don't know where the rest of you all are, because I still think we ought to be looking at building a building and taking this money that you're talking about we putting here, go downstairs, do whatever we got just to be able to, because, you know, the city moved all their people over to the transit, and they're redoing their whole room downstairs.
Okay, well,
so-
I have a question. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's quite all right.
But the question is, what was the last motion that we made pertaining to this item?
In June,
Yes.
in June, I believe that the agenda session.
It was to determine the cost of what it was
Determine the cost, so there was.
to renovate the entire building, Mr. Chairman.
So there was no discussion at that time whether to, as a body, there was no discussion on whether, we didn't take a vote or anything on whether to move forward with going over to that courthouse or remaining here.
In the discussion, as the board debated it, it was thrown out that we really ought to, because one of the things that Mr. Walker pointed out was, if you renovate that room on the second floor, you're gonna have one room looking extremely current and the rest of the building looking like the 1940s.
Okay.
And so that led into discussion, and a board member said, well, I think we need to renovate the whole thing. Let's move county managers, legal, and the board of commissioners over there, and staff come back with a cost. And that's where Mr. Walker is today, asking where the board wants to go. And that kind of dovetails into the next item that Mr. Walker is going to present, is the RFQ related to looking at customer services building.
Okay, let's go into that discussion, and we do both of them at the same time.
Since they're both tied in, I just have one more question. It's my understanding that Dan McMillan made this building to go up 2 more additional floors if necessary. Is that true structurally? We can do the same square footage 2 more times?
Yes.
Okay. I like to at least just keep that in there as an option, because if we build a building close to here, we're giving up some county land, whether it's a parking lot or something somewhere, we're going to be filling in asphalt either next door.
Okay, let's hear, excuse me, gentlemen, let's hear what Mr. Walker has to say regarding the next item that's on the agenda, and then we'll do both of these items at the same time. This is one that you discussed now, we'll continue on to this if you don't mind.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So on May 3rd, we put out a solicitation for request qualifications for general government services, building, space utilization, and site analysis study. And so this study would examine county facilities, the current courthouse that we're in now, the Cumberland County Historic Courthouse, which we were also discussing, and then 109 Bradford. And what they would do is they would determine the space needs for those departments, and then take a look at all of those departments that are under the direction of the county manager, and then see which ones could be relocated for a future general government services building to consolidate for efficiency and a span of control. The study would then be used by the Board of Commissioners and county management to make those determinations about the future government services building, as well as use that information to make a determination on how we can improve those facilities in the event that we vacate those or find other solutions on how to better use the space there. Sir.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Adams.
Would that also include location?
Yes, sir, it would include location.
You can say, okay.
And then the final report would be presented to the Board of Commissioners and be utilized to continue the project into the design and construction phases. So when we put out the solicitation, we received 6 responses. It's in your packet on how we rank those responses based upon a total award of 750 points. Creech and Associates received the highest score of 594 points, with Oakley Collier Architects coming in second with 528 points. And what choice and allow us to enter into negotiations for refined scope and price, and then bring that back to the board for presentation for approval.
Okay, thank you very much for the information. Now, we have two items that I'm gonna try to deal with at about the same time here. So the first item that we discussed, item regarding the renovation of the old courthouse. Is there a motion for that item?
Mr. Chairman, I kind of will make, a kind of dual motion if I can. Which is, one is to cease looking at the old courthouse and to approve, the request for qualifications for the general, services building and move toward the general services building.
Okay.
So I don't know if that costs us any money to stop those folks from working or whatever. And I would say that, Madam Clerk, this is not to take it to the consent agenda, because I know that Mr. Keith will probably want to have some, he probably want to say something, so it just go to general business, maybe.
Put it as an item of business Monday evening.
Yes, I think just, yeah, because he'll pull it off the agenda.
I think that's probably a safe bet.
Well, only because, I think it's fair. I know that Jimmy wants to go to the old courthouse, and I think he ought to have his input, and to put it on the consent agenda, to pull it off the consent agenda, to put it on the item of business. Let's just put it on the item of business and be done.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for purposes of the motion, is the item of business for both H and I?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Myself personally, I think it should be put on the consent agenda, and if there's any questions or any concerns that need to be addressed, then pull it from the consent agenda and deal with it that way. That's what I think. And I might be wrong in thinking.
I'm just thinking, that's probably what it is, but I don't have a problem if that's the consensus of this body to put it on the consent agenda, that's fine.
I'd be surprised at some of the things Jimmy has pulled off.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he didn't pull this one off, so I agree with Glenn that,
I just think out of deference to him. I'm just thinking out of deference. I would do it for anybody, because we know that he has been the driver behind going to that historical courthouse,
Yeah,
and he ought to have his say.
I know he wants to renovate it, not tear it down, and use it for county purposes, possibly county offices. And if it works for the board to go over there, yes, but I think he just doesn't want to tear down an old building like that. So I think that more than anything else, he wants to probably get his 2 cents in on renovating it as a historic site.
So what's the motion?
Whichever way y'all want to do. I made a motion.
No, it's not whichever way you want to do it, because I threw something out there. I threw an item out there for the consent agenda. Then somebody said no, so whatever.
I'll put it on the
we have
consent
now.
agenda. That's second consensus.
Second,
All in favor?
that voting in favor, Lancaster Council, Evans and Adams, and Stewart voting in opposition, Commissioner Bruce.
So that will be an item of business.
Could be an item on the consent agenda.
Well, when it's not unanimous.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's right.
I'm sorry. You're right. Absolutely right. Just give me yes, Madam Clerk.
Could I clarify though, again, for purposes of the minutes, what the action was for, H? I know it's going to go.
Is to cease, my motion is basically cease any further work on moving to, cease the work going to the historical courthouse and to approve the request for qualification for the consultant services for the general services building.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
So we would be able to go into negotiation
For the general, Dr. Munn.
So,
after Monday.
okay.
Madam.
Yes, sir. Our final item under number 4 is 4J. It's amendments to Rule 6 and 26 of the board's rules of procedure, and I ask the county attorney to present this item.
Excuse me, my computer went dead, or I'm trying to get my password back there. This is an item, if you look at rules 26 and 26, they are reprinted in your attachment, and it's additions, there's no change in language in bold red font. And what those two things address are the presentation by electronic media at the public comment period first, and then in any public hearing secondly. We haven't had any requests in a few years on this, but we have had them before, and it's always been the board's practice to deny social media requests, and that's a good practice because in some places the issue has been people putting up advertisements of obscenity and stuff. So it's particularly at election time. It is the clerk and my recommendation, and we're doing this because the clerk is republishing the rules to incorporate several changes that have been made, and these were two that hadn't been made, but it's our recommendation that they do be made to be consistent with the board's practice and our recommendation.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion? Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and board members. Under other items, I had asked that the board allow Mr. Jackson to give an update on some of the needs that we have in the animal shelter veterinary medicine program. And Mr. Jackson's going to give you the details. And this centers around some significant staffing needs to continue the program that Dr. April Kelly has started that have really reduced our euthanasia numbers. But without some additional staffing considerations, we're not going to be able to continue at this level. I acknowledge that this probably should have been handled during budget time, and I apologize right after the budget's adopted, but I think this is too important not to bring to the board.
Okay, thank you, Madam Manager. Mr. Jackson, hello again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for allowing us to put this important topic on your agenda. Just to give you some background, Dr. April Kelly was hired in October of 2018, and she's the first full-time shelter veterinarian to serve Cumberland County. Dr. Kelly has done a great job building a shelter medicine program from scratch with very little equipment or staff. Since being hired, Dr. Kelly has personally done or overseen 3,655 spay-neuter surgeries. This is 43% of the total number of surgeries done at the shelter by all participating veterinarians. As a side note, these same surgeries done by outside veterinarians would have cost the county approximately $186,000. Dr. Kelly also assesses and treats animals in the shelter each workday. This is critical to help reduce the spread of communicable diseases in the shelter and improve the odds of animals being adopted. There is still a tremendous need to find other veterinary providers to assist the shelter with spay-neuter surgeries for our adoptable animals. Dr. Kelly was instrumental in developing a relationship with Fort Bragg that allows Army veterinarians to perform spay-neuter surgeries at our shelter. Unfortunately, we're experiencing a decrease in surgery appointments in local veterinary practices as they experience staffing shortages and increased demand due to COVID. This is currently placing a greater burden on our county staff to perform more spay-neuter surgeries in-house. I've got a table that I'd like to hand out if I can.
Here, I'll hand it out, Tracy. You keep talking.
This table will give you an idea of how we compare to some other counties. As one of the largest North Carolina counties with one of the highest annual animal intake totals, staff felt it important to perform a review of comparison counties to ensure that we are adequately staffed and not overextending our existing personnel. The review has shown a disparity between our ratio of veterinary health staff to our veterinarian. Typical staffing in similar counties is 3 to 4 staff for each veterinarian. Our ratio is 1 staff person to 1 veterinarian. 1 full-time employee is assigned to the veterinarian for shelter, medical care, and surgeries. The Animal Services Director is considered reclassifying another existing position to assist in this situation. But we're not able to do that because the shelter currently has vacancies. We have some employees on leave, and it's difficult to staff all areas of the shelter adequately with existing positions as it sits down. The director also looked at creating a part-time position, but the workload is greater than what can be covered utilizing a part-time position, and it will require a full-time worker. Animal Services has requested at least 1 vet health tech terms of an action, in terms of this request, is for 2 animal services shelter veterinary health technicians. The salary benefits for each would be $49,778.45 per position, for a total of $99,556.90 for the 2 positions. Staff believes this action is necessary to maintain the integrity of our shelter veterinary medical program and retain our current veterinarian.
Mr. Chairman, I so move and ask to be put on the consent agenda. I'm sorry.
We're gonna be back here. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. Forsyth got 7, Gifford got 9, Mecklenburg got 7, and we've got more animal intake. Why would we just go to the bare minimum? And you have to tell me whether you got the money for it. But to overwork the staff, you're already overworking them, and just to go 2, if you need more than 2, I think we need to ask for what we need. I don't think it's right to get 2 people, tax them to death, and then you're back here in 6 months to a year saying they're overtaxed. I think we're different because we do have Fort Bragg. Some of those folk leave, they get out of the military, they leave their animals here, and we got to take care of them. The same thing, I think, out of this pandemic, when everybody goes back to work, some of those animals they got that they had around the house are going to be out, and they're going to go back over here to this shelter. So I think we need more than 2. It's going to, and I would ask the manager, up to 4, whatever her budget does. And you don't have to add them all at one time. You probably can't find them all at one time. But I don't think we ought to piecemeal this thing. That's just that so you can do what you want.
Up to 4, so moved.
Commissioner Lancaster.
Yeah, and I agree, and I also would hope that during this period of time, maybe next year, if not today, we could also look, first of all, I'm very impressed with what goes on down there. That whole staff, we have really seen a lot of improvement. And, to a lot of people that love animals, they expect the same thing that they should expect of their pets, as well as loved ones. And I think maybe we could even stretch it a little bit more. I don't even have any idea what a veterinarian's salary is, but, if we can afford a couple more tech assistants, I'd like for us to explore the possibility of also, Mr. Chairman, looking for another veterinarian.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Booth.
That wasn't his book.
That was kind of like that. I have spoken to a couple of recently retired vets, and in addition to saying that they would be interested in volunteering and helping out, I know of at least 1 or 2 of them that would, take an afternoon and come down here and get paid their travel or something to do it. So,
when we first came on this board, Ben,
and get part-time something.
Council can probably tell you, we used to get calls all the time on animal control. You remember all them calls we used to get, and we haven't got that? Well, I haven't got it. But we used to, talk to Commissioner Stewart.
She was done, I think. I'm thinking.
She was 9 years
So
old.
you still get some. But I don't get it anywhere near what we used to. And then they just got the one last week. We stood up there and praised them last week. So
It's a great investment.
I'd say up to 4 then, subject to the discretion of the county manager.
So the motion is,
That we allocate the county manager to have the authority to hire up to 4 vet techs to assist the Cumberland County Animal Shelter, and it be put on consent agenda.
Could I add to your motion that what Glenn said and explore the possibility of part-time?
Yeah.
Contract and part-time veterinarian
The one that's
assistants.
next door to you, Barry Bostic, he plays golf every day, but he says sometimes he's even bored to do that.
okay, so we have the motion.
I seconded it.
Okay, there's a second by Commissioner Council. All in favor?
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's
Okay.
extremely helpful.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Thought it might be appropriate for the attorney to give the board an update on the opioid litigation settlement.
Mr. Attorney.
This settlement agreement that we're talking about is 344 pages long, so there's a lot that could be talked about. I have not brought this forward because I have not had anything to recommend. What happened, you've heard about 2 That is an agreement between the counties, the 100 counties, 17 cities, and the state of North Carolina on the allocation of North Carolina's allocation in the settlement among the state and the counties and the 17 cities. It's a great agreement in terms of the allocation. It is the best one by far of the states that have done so. In fact, after this North Carolina one was published back in May, a couple other states shifted gears and used that as their model. The thing that's been a problem with it, though, is it basically stated in there that all the attorneys, which are over 1,000 attorneys, represent the almost 2,000 clients in this case, that include Cumberland County, that's in the Middle District of Northern District of Ohio. Anyway, that agreement says that the attorneys had agreed to waive the contingency fee contracts, which were 25% of attorneys' fees and contracts that we and most of these other counties have with the attorneys. The day after that came out, there was a national call with the National Council with all the county attorneys in this state, at least, and they said, no, we haven't agreed to that, and there is no national settlement. There was a great deal of confusion. This thing has been developing. The last portion of this settlement, which was entered by the Judge Polster August the 6th. I just received it shortly before this meeting, and I left there to go respond to a comment that I had made to one of the largest representing us. But that agreement, and I just got that again short time before this meeting, that agreement, that order says that the 100 attorneys that are on what they call the Plaintiffs' Executive Committee, which is the group of attorneys that's been basically handling all the administrative aspects of this complex case in that court hearing, have all agreed to a reduction of attorneys' fees of 15%. I got, shortly after I got that, a letter from the National Council, one from one of the firms in North Carolina and one from Texas, who said that they have enclosed that order, and they interpret it as meaning that 15% is a reasonable attorney's fee. So they still have not resolved this issue. They say they will continue to work with the North Carolina Department of Justice to try to resolve the attorney's fees issue. That's really what it comes down to now. I really think that it is resolved by this court order, but I'm giving you the message from the attorneys that this stuff is flowing through me. And I particularly wanted the commissioners to know about it right now, because I know that, and I think there's going to be a session on this again on Saturday in Wilmington. Unfortunately, I won't be there on Saturday. I've got to go to take my son to Louisville College one day, so I'll be missing that session. But I've been contacted numerous times by Kevin Leonard and Amy Mason. Just kind of give you logistics of the numbers on this. There were 23 counties in North Carolina that did not sue, that did not enter litigation. One of them was Wake County, the biggest county in the state. Those 23 counties immediately signed off on this agreement because they didn't have a dog in the fight. So that's how that worked out. The state association had put together, and I thought this was a good idea, a committee that consists of 5 county attorneys, 5 county managers, and 5 county commissioners to work with, negotiate, and work through the state association to work with the Attorney General's office to try to come up with this agreement. And it is a very good agreement, except for this kind of loophole that's left in their issue with the attorney's fees. As of last Thursday, this last time I looked on the association's website, there were still 40 counties who had not signed off on this agreement. So 60 have now, including the 23 that signed on in. In those that have, that includes all the other big counties except Durham and Cumberland, and that's why some of you folks, I'm sure, are being pushed as hard as you are by Kevin Leonard and that group. I don't know what's going on in Durham, but I know that counsel from Dallas is meeting with Durham's commissioners on the 17th, next Tuesday, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And my contact in North Carolina wanted to know if any of the board of commissioners here would like to meet and discuss this with those attorneys, either at that time jointly with Durham, if that could be worked out, or at 10 o'clock that morning. So I'll throw that out there if anybody is interested in it. I'm hoping to make a little headway. I sent an email to the group that I'm dealing with about an hour before this meeting, and I just got an email message saying they want to talk at 5 o'clock to answer some questions. So that's where we're at. I think this will be worked out. There's no real rush in it because, I mean, we have really until November 21st is that, but we don't be that late. But that's what's going on, and that's why I'm brought things forward, because I thought this would have been worked out before now. It just has not been. If I can answer any questions.
I just got one question, because that's one of the litigations and one part of money. What about the other part of money that the Attorney General has already gotten? Because when we were at NACO, and when we went to the fall state session, there was a provision, they wanted us to sign off of how this money would be. We got later in the disagreement or whatever. What about that part of money?
It's all by this court order now.
It's two different, this is the second one, this is a different lawsuit. There's two pots of money on the opiate stuff that's coming. The one that we did, which we hired our attorneys to do.
Yes, sir.
Then there's the one that Josh Stein settled for the state of North Carolina, where certain monies were coming directly to the counties. The state was going to keep some, but they had a little provision in there that said, we wanted y'all to sign off on this if you got a little bit more money. So remember that? Which is a second difference. So where are we on now?
It's been lumped together now. That's what the agreement is with the state that they're pushing you on.
They come to two.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The state agreement now, you're right. Early on, there was a separate settlement being talked about with the AG's office with the state.
It's already done. That money's done.
It's now that's why they're now calling this the Distributors National Settlement Agreement. That's what this is now. The agreement that the state association is pushing allocates, in our numbers, the numbers for each county are specified in there. But 85% of the money that would be allocated to the state of North Carolina would be going to the county, to the 100 counties and 17 cities. That's the parties that are eligible for funding. Cumberland County is one of the very top. I can't remember now. It's like maybe the second or third in the amount of money that would be allocated to it under that agreement. The only problem with that agreement is it consistently with this national settlement agreement, it restricts the way that you can spend the money to opioid impact remediation, and we cannot pay attorney's fees out of it. And that's the issue that we've got, because we have a contract with attorneys that say that 25% of what we receive is going to be paid for attorney's fees. That's where this is at. Although I think that's now been dropped to 15%.
So is that 15% of all the money, which they had nothing to do with in terms of Josh Stein getting it, so they're getting 15% of the total?
Well, that depends on who you listen to. Josh Stein's position is that the attorney general's work this out. The attorney's position is the attorneys work this out. So that's what's going on.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
we're gonna get some money, Tom.
I think this. I mean, and I'm just letting. My advice to the board is don't let. I'm sure that Kevin is going to work you really hard, but it's just we still need to get this resolved. I mean, there's a reason why 40 counties still haven't signed off on this, and this is the reason. And then you also got to understand, everybody in the state, every county in the state does not have the same contract. The form of the contract that we have is what most of the counties have. It's also, I know the contract that Guilford County has, and Guilford County has signed off on it. We have the same contract, but I mean the same language of the contract. But there are some differences. So it's, you can't compare yourself to everybody else. And right now, and I don't know what contract Durham has, but Durham is being pushed really hard to it. And at some point, the way the national agreement reads, for the state to become eligible, counties that make up 60% of the population must agree to the state allocation formula that's been worked out. And I think we may already be there, because, as I said, Wade, Mecklenburg, Guilford, Forsyth, Buncombe, they've already signed off on this thing. Cumberland and Durham are the only two large counties that have not. The reason the state is pushing it so hard is that there are severe penalties in the state allocation unless it is 100% participation by all counties and the cities that are parties in the litigation, which North Carolina are 17. And so that's why the state is pushing so hard. I mean, the state can do this without Cumberland County or any other county signing on, but they want everybody signed up because that's how we get 100% of the allocation. I think if it worked out, it's going to let everybody know what's going on and why it's going on. Hopefully, by Tuesday of next week, we're going to have some sit-down discussion with the National Council on what these issues are. I mean, they know what the issues are, but it's just, I've actually asked, and what's kind of brought to a head here is I, just Monday, I guess it was, sent an email asking that for the National Council group, for which we are represented, to send me a letter indicating that they will not participate in the attorney fee fund that's been set up by this settlement, which is $1.6 billion, and that they're not going to participate in that, and they're not going to waive their fees, contingent fee agreement, and they're not going to do that. I mean, they're not going to give me a letter like that, so that's what's going on. So I think this will get worked out, but if you have any questions from Kevin Leonard in Wilmington, you tell them you have this is ongoing discussion. It has been an ongoing discussion since May. And back in May, about mid-June, we were having 3 webinar calls every other day with the state one day, and then the attorneys 2 days later, and it's been going. That thank God it's finally stopped because it was very time-consuming process. That's where we're at. I'll try to answer any questions, but it's a complex matter. It's going to get worked out, I assure you.
Are there any questions, comments by our attorney? Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Under reports, normally I just ask if you have any questions. I want Vicki to come up very quickly and tell the board about the trends and health insurance. It won't take but just a minute, but I think you need to know what our trends are looking like.
Thank you very much.
Hello again. Okay, so what I'm about ready to tell you, or what I'm getting ready to tell you about is not reflected in the reports that were in your packet because there's a lag in those reports. And so what you have in front of you is for the fiscal year ending 2021, the month of June. So part of the process in being a self-funded plan is that we have to provide upfront payments to Blue Cross to fund the health insurance claims on a weekly basis. Then the claims settle after they go through the process of stop-loss consideration. So I'm going to tell you about comparisons. During fiscal year 20, what we were seeing in the weekly funding claims amounts were around $250,000 a week or so. Fiscal year 21, we would see normally ranges between like maybe $275 to $325 per week. Since the beginning of June, we have been seeing more in the $500,000 plus range than we are in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. And so for us, this is an indication that our claims are going to start coming in more. Before this meeting, we reached out to Blue Cross to try to get ahead of this, to be able to explain it. To explain it better. We did anticipate some of this because of COVID, as well in 2020 and parts of 2021, people were not having elective medical procedures. And so Blue Cross says while we are seeing a lot of elective procedures coming through as a result of delays from 2020. Also, many are getting preventative screenings and volume and utilization has increased. The summer of 2021 was predicted to be the largest of the post-COVID-19 surges from our medical advisors, and we're seeing that surge in most all groups. And so what that tells us is it's not unexpected across all networks. So we're seeing the same thing, but in addition, for us, we already have 4 large claimants that are at that are at the high, in the High Plains area.
Is that gonna change any, now that we're really never gonna be over with COVID and just fill in the blank? I mean, is this gonna be the trend or the wave they anticipated? Is the wave ever gonna go down, or is this just the new norm?
So,
Just
the
now we have Delta,
best I
Gamma.
can tell you, I think maybe it depends, on shutdown, I don't know. But if the trend continues and people continue to receive their elective procedures as they have been for the past 6 weeks or so, then we'll likely need a budget revision to allocate fund balance in order to cover the cost of the health insurance fund. And it's been quite a while since we've seen it, so I just wanted to be transparent and share that with you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, Madam Manager.
That's the end of the agenda for us, unless you have some other questions.
Are there any other comments or questions by the board at this time?
I'm going to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, ma'am. With that,
I would bring to the board's attention, since y'all send me off to these things, that with the Alliance Mental Health Board, Mecklenburg is going to be a member of the Alliance along with Orange County. There is considerable debate about the number of seats that each county would have. We were on a conference call last week. Alliance will be coming to Cumberland County, talking to the chair and to the manager and one of the board members from Alliance. It might be me, it might be one of the others, to give an update as to where they're looking. But it looks as though some of the counties, Durham is in line to lose a number of seats. We were in line to lose one seat. And I think Wake County was going to lose some seats. So that's kind of the update. I'll keep you up to date. They are headed into, Cardinal is going to merge with Bahia. So Cardinal will no longer exist, which is one of the reasons that Mecklenburg left Cardinal. And there may be a couple other counties that might move between here and Bladen County left and with the Trillium. So they're no longer with East Point. They left and went to Trillium. So there's still going to be some more changes as they go into this managed care, Medicaid transformation. It's going to be, you won't hear about it, it's going to uproot a lot of people in the behavioral health, not just here, but all over the state.
As far as the Alliance is concerned, should we be looking or thinking forward about whether or not to stay with the Alliance or?
Alliance is probably better equipped going forward into this transformation than some of the other ones. I would, having looked at them, I would tell you that this is probably where we want to stay. Going, like I said, Cardinal's not going to exist anymore. East Point, I'm surprised they're still there, but they are still holding on. Trillium is all up and down the coast. They go from down at the bottom from Columbus, almost from South Carolina, all the way up to the Virginia line on the coast. And what they've done, they've divided into regions. They don't even have one board. They've got 3 separate boards because of how large they are. And everything, even if you wanted to move, has to be approved by the Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services in Raleigh. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
the second thing is, I sit on FAMPO, and so one of the things is the infrastructure bill was coming down. It passed the Senate today, and so it's going over to the House, and it'll probably pass the House when the other bill gets there. So if you remember, this board a couple of years ago voted to go with the consultant in terms of rail from Cumberland County to Raleigh, to Wake County. They've already finished that study. They have 2 routes, and now they're trying to look at and determine those routes. I think that we may want to have some discussion at some point with this infrastructure money coming down as to be in line to be able to try to move that project forward. So I'm finished up with it.
Thank you. Commissioner Booth.
And I agree with Glenn on if you pick up Mac and Orange, then that keeps you still in the game. If they had gone somewhere else, I think we might have wanted to try to get in while the bidding was going on for new members. But and then this is just, I have it's about a 14-page docket each month for the FCEDC, but, oh, he's awake now. Robo's here, and I told him I was going to start bringing this so that everybody could see it. It's all summarized on one sheet. This is July, this is August, but you get kind of a feeling when you start seeing the average capital project is $67 million, $253 million since January of 2017 coming into the county. We've run out of stuff to sell, so we're on top of the game. And if you have any questions, he's here. I know he wasn't going to answer questions right now, but if you want to call him, it's just very interesting to have it all capsulized in one sheet.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioner Booth.
I have one last item, and it just came across my phone, that's why I want to have one last item, is that Fairfield State University is going to do, Freddie Johnson, who is the head of the Highway Patrol and Crime Prevention, they're going to do a reception over there, and they will want me to do a proclamation from the county. I think
Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask the chair, is the board wants to proceed with that proclamation.
See, take it away from the scene.
Okay.
So I moved them.
Madam Clerk, you said what? I'm sorry.
Does the board want me to move forward with putting that proclamation on the August 16th agenda?
Please.
Thank you.
Okay. All minds in two. Yes, ma'am. If there's no more questions, can I get a motion?
I will adjourn.
Is there a second?